Hello all, I hope you've been enjoying the sunshine from the safety of your gardens today or your outdoor spaces, or even through the window. So today is part 15 of Varjak Paw. Now when we left him before, he just made a new friend and was about to return home to see if he could help the other cats with the gentleman and those evil kitties that he'd seen many weeks before, I think. We never know how much time has passed, but I get the idea it was a while. So let's move on to chapter 27. The three friends headed for the hill at top speed. Varjak explained about the gentleman and his black cats on the way. He hoped he wasn't too late. With the elder Paw gone and father in charge, what would the family do when they faced the gentleman's cats? What would the gentleman's cats do to them? Anything could have happened. After all the time he'd been away, the house would surely be different. Looks quite ominous on that hill, doesn't it? Those pictures in his head, the red velvet armchair, the china feeding bowls, might not even exist anymore. He was sure of only one thing. They'd have to climb the wall to get in, and Varjak remembered it as the hardest climb of his life. Thunder growled above the city as they reached the foot of the hill. The sky was violet with the threat of another storm. "It's up here," said Varjak, leading the way, as lightning flashed overhead. They climbed the hill as fast as they could. Rain began to fall. It came in stinging whips which lashed into Varjak's nose, his eyes, his ears. He tried to snatch a breath. Water filled his mouth, surged down his throat. He choked on it, but kept going up the hill. 1 step, 2 steps, 100, 1,000, whatever it took. The moon stared down at them, a sullen, one-eyed sentry in the sky. "Give up," it seemed to say. "Give up and go away." Soaking, straining, panting for breath, they reached the top of the hill as the sky shattered in the white light. What Varjak saw there made his fur prickle. A little stone wall stood before them, half the height of any in the city. It looked old and crumbling, as if it had been neglected for a very long time. Another blast of thunder rocked the earth. Varjak shivered. Could this really be the same wall which enclosed the world he grew up in? The wall that once seemed so high and impossible to climb. Was this the place he had left, or had everything changed while he was away? There was a door in the wall. He pushed at it. It wouldn't budge. It was locked. He circled the wall, seeking some familiar sight. A lightning flash revealed the cracks and fissures in the stone where the wild moss grew. At the top of the wall, he could see the gnarled upper branches of some stunted old trees, and there was that single tree which had fallen down the night he left home. Varjak touched its wet bark and smiled with relief. He recognised it now. Of course it was the same. The place would never change. It was him who would change. "This is it!" he shouted happily above the thunder. "There are trees inside we can climb down. I'll go first and—" "Cludge, what's wrong?" Cludge was shaking. His eyes were cloudy with fear again. "Can't climb," he stammered. "Cludge can't climb." Varjak stared at the huge, powerful dog in disbelief. "You can't?" "Of course he can't," snapped Holly. "Everyone knows dogs can't climb. We'd be in big trouble if they could. Isn't there another way in?" "Dogs can't climb?" "No, they can't," said Holly. She frowned. "This is the only way in, isn't it? I can tell from your face." It felt like falling through the air and never landing. They were so near, but that wall, that old stone wall, stood in the way once again. "Cludge, sorry," said a small, scared voice beside him. "Want to help, Varjak?" Lightning flared up above. Thunder cracked. Rain streamed down Varjak's face like tears. But it was strange. The storm didn't scare him as it had before. Instead, it seemed to enter him from whiskers to tail, filling him with its own wild power, so that he and the storm became one. There was no turning back now. With or without a dog, he was going to find his family. "It's all right, Cludge," she said. "You wait for us here. Come on, Holly, let's go inside." They left Cludge cowering under the tree. The 2 cats stormed to the top of the wall. They clambered over the edge and down the other side through a tangled maze of twisted branches. Silently they stole into the garden. They padded over the wet grass and up to the cat door. "This is it," whispered Varjak as they slipped through. "This is the Contessa's house." Chapter 28. They emerged in the corridor. It was empty. The cat door clicked shut behind them. Holly turned to it at once, nudged it with a paw. It stayed shut. "Let me try," said Varjak. He pushed, but it wouldn't open. It had locked from the inside. "So you can come into this place," said Holly, "but you can't leave." The gentleman must have changed it, said Varjak with a knot of tension growing in his stomach. This wasn't a good sign. He looked around the corridor. The thick green windows were closed, the lace curtains drawn. It looked normal, except that, like the garden wall, everything seemed much smaller and older than he remembered. The faded rugs, the stuffy furniture. Compared to the city, it was more like a display in a shop window than any real place. The silence made it stranger still. There were none of the city sounds here. There was no one about either. Not the family, not the gentleman, not those black cats of his. Yet it smelled strongly of cats, as if there were lots of them very near. His whiskers tingled. This wasn't right. Where were they all? Varjak and Holly shook the rainwater from their fur and moved stealthily along the hallway. At the top of the stairs above the musty carpet, the Contessa's door was closed. Varjak pricked up his ears. He could hear something up there, a long, low, mewling noise, but further down the corridor he thought he could hear cats talking. "I'll look upstairs," whispered Holly. "You check out down here, in case I find them. What do your family look like?" Varjak paused. "A bit like me," he said, "but different. Be careful. Run if you see a man or two black cats. They're dangerous." Holly headed up the stairs. Varjak edged along the corridor. He tried to empty his mind of thoughts, as Jalal had said, so he could shadow walk, but it was no good. The thoughts kept coming. Where were the family? Were they all right? Would they be glad to see him, or had they forgotten about him already? He could clearly hear voices now, coming from the front room. The door was half open. He crept up to the edge where he wouldn't be seen, and peered in. There they were, the Mesopotamian Blues, alive and well. Relief flooded through him. He wasn't too late. He hadn't let them down. There was no sign that they'd been hurt, no sign of the gentleman or his cats. It looked like a family council was in progress. But it was Julius who sat now on the Contessa's red velvet armchair. The others were clustered around, fiddling with their collars as they listened to him speak. What was going on? "I don't care," Julius was saying. "But things like this don't happen for no reason," said Father. "Shouldn't we try to find out what it means?" "I'm the head of the family now," said Julius, flexing his muscles. "Does anyone have a problem with that?" There were a few mutters around the room, but no one replied. Varjak couldn't believe his eyes. Things really had changed since he'd been away. Julius was acting like a gang boss. It looked like he'd done to Father what Father had done to the elder poor. "If we all agree," said Julius, "then the council is over." Varjak took a deep breath and stepped into the room. They turned to stare at him as if he was a stranger. "Varjak," said Mother. "Is it really you, sweetheart? Look, everyone, he's back." At once they cleared a space for him, surrounded him with silver blue fur and green eyes. "Varjak Paw, we thought you were lost forever." "He's grown, hasn't he? Welcome home, Varjak." Home. Finally he was home. He looked round the family circle. They were purring and beaming at him. Mother, Father and Aunt Junie, Julius and Jasmine, Jay, Jethro and Jerome. They all seemed so glad to see him. It was good to be back. "Where have you been, son?" said Father. "Outside." "And the elder poor?" Varjak shook his head sadly. "Gone." Julius stepped between Varjak and his parents. "Things have changed since you disappeared," he said. "I'm head of the family now. Father was for a while, but now it's me." He stuck his chest out to underline the point. He was bigger than Varjak remembered him. He had grown taller. His body had thickened and become more powerful. His collar was tight around his neck. He looked extremely well fed. Varjak glanced at Father. He seemed tired and old next to Julius. It was obvious who would win in a fight. Perhaps it had already happened. "Congratulations," said Varjak to his big brother. "That's not all that's changed," began Father. "No, things are better for us now than they've ever been," interrupted Julius. He pressed something down beneath his paw. It was the toy mouse. "The gentleman's been very good to us." "Him?" said Varjak. "His cat's killed the elder poor." There was a gasp around the room, but Julius just looked annoyed. "You're lying," he said, raking his claws across the mouse. It had become ragged. Its fur was wearing away. "The gentleman loves us. His cats are our friends. Why would they do a thing like that?" "They wanted to stop us going outside." "Well, there's your answer," said Julius. "They were only trying to help. If you hadn't been doing something wrong..." Varjak bristled. It was Julius who was wrong. Varjak knew he was, but Julius could always make his lies so convincing, and Varjak couldn't find an answer fast enough. Now, said Mother, "Julius is right, Varjak. The gentleman still feeds us wonderful food every day. As for his cats," Julia shot her a look, and she coughed. "Oh, well, that's enough of that," she said quickly. "But just look at you, sweetheart. Haven't you grown? And those scars on your face, you've changed so much I hardly recognise you." "What scars?" said Varjak, and remembered Ginger and Razor and Sally Bones. He smiled. The world outside had left its mark on him. "Well, I've had a few fights." A voice like milk in the morning purred in his ear. Cousin Jasmine. "Why, Varjak, you're not a little kitten any more." Varjak's ears perked up. He'd always liked Jasmine more than the others. "He'll always be our kitten," said Mother. She licked Varjak's coat, smoothed his fur. He didn't object. He let her warm tongue wash away the rain from the storm and the city's grime. Let her strip him of the smell of outside. "That's right," said Julius, glowering at Jasmine. "He's still a kitten." "So what's it like outside?" said Jay. "What happened to your collar?" said Jethro. "And how did you get those scars?" said Jerome. "I'll tell you," said Varjak, though Julius was now glowering at them. "I'll tell you everything."